Hi everyone. So today we are going to talk about the integumentary system, which is the skin. We already spent some time talking about the skeletal system and the muscular system, so this is the next system that we were scheduled to talk about. So I provided a link for the PowerPoint on Edmodo. I also provided the notes on Edmodo, so whichever one you prefer to print or write down for yourself, totally up to you. So here we go. Okay. Sorry guys, give me 1 second. Share screen. Here we go. Okay, so let me get to the beginning. Okay, here we go. So the integumentary system, also known as the skin, is the largest organ in the body. If I know it's kind of weird to think about this, but if you were to like take out all your skin and like dump it on the floor, the amount that would be there would be bigger than any other part of your body. And I know we don't want to think about us, ripping off our skin and throwing it on the floor, but it kind of puts a little bit into perspective. And you've got these two images here, um, the one on the left and the one on the right, that goes to show you, just how big the skin actually is. So the skin is made up of muscle tissue and connective tissue and nervous tissue and epithelial tissue. All the stuff that we talked about when we began talking about the difference between cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, and ultimately the organism. The skin is made up of both dead and living cells, very important. It's going to cover all your body surfaces, which is huge, especially during this whole coronavirus. Our skin is our first line of defense, believe it or not. So it actually stops a lot of bacteria and viruses from entering our body and keeping the moisture in. Our body is anywhere between 75 and 90% water. So that's very important that we maintain that environment inside of the body. Once again, we're talking about homeostasis. Remember, homeostasis is our body's way of maintaining a balance. And all of these systems do their part in keeping our body balanced. And it's when our body is not balanced that we get sick. Okay, we'll talk about that more when we talk about the immune system. So the skin contains a protein called keratin that gives it its waterproof capabilities. That's the reason why when you get out of the shower, it kind of beads up on your skin, or even out of the pool. So your nails and your hair are made up of dead cells, and they are made up of keratin as well. So that's why, like, when you go get a haircut, you're like, ow, 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 because the actual hair itself here is dead. The root where the hair grows from, and the root and the base here, where the nail grows from, like you see right here, that is living. That's why it hurts if you were to pull your hair or even rip off a fingernail. Okay, so this picture here is a split end. If for you ladies that like to play with your hair and find the split ends, you know how one strand of hair gets split into two at the ends? That's actually a split end zoomed in under the microscope. Pretty interesting. And then here, so we've got the nails. So the white part of the nail is usually what you cut off if you cut your nails, right? And then if you've ever cut really close to the edge of the really, further in, that's when it can become painful because there's super sensitive skin underneath this part of the nail. And then this part of the nail here is where it grows from. So that is the living part of the nail, while this is, not living, it is dead. So keratin is what gives things its hardness, its strength. So that is going to be found in animal horns and claws and beaks of all organisms. So Your skin is broken up into two layers and then a layer of fat underneath. So the first layer is the epidermis. It's the upper layer of skin. It's the outside. It's what we see here if you were to take your arm and rub it, you're touching the epidermis. It is made up of both dead and living cells. So the first couple of layers up top here are dead, and then underneath are the living cells. So if you've ever scratched yourself, you'll see like a white mark there. Those are your dead skin cells. That's why you don't bleed. If you were to go down into the other layers like the dermis, that's where we're going to find our blood vessels. If you've ever cut yourself and you're bleeding, you've actually cut through the epidermis and have cut into now the dermis. So pretty interesting to note that. So the epidermis. Then you have the dermis, which is right underneath the epidermis, which is the lower layer. And this is, like I said, right under the skin. This is all living. All of the cells in the dermis are living. Okay, so things that you find in your dermis, you have your blood vessels. Very important because blood contains oxygen and nutrients, very important for the body. Our skin needs to have it. So that's very important for it to be throughout the skin. And in fact, when you damage a blood vessel, that's what causes a bruise. So I'm sure we've all experienced a bruise at some point in our lives. So a bruise is so when you hit the skin, underneath the blood vessel breaks open and it actually goes into that area underneath the skin. So that's what gives bruises that like dark purplish color, because of the blood that has actually seeped out of the blood vessel, excuse me, into the skin below. And over time, a week or two, the bruise will go away because our body is going to clean up all that blood that is stuck there and is going to get rid of it. And, our body's going to recycle it just like we recycle a lot of things inside of our body. If you've ever had a bruise that turns like a yellowish, greenish color, there are other things that we'll talk about a little bit later called your lymphatic system. That is when those break open and cause that to happen. So, pretty interesting. So your hair follicles, very, very interesting as well. So I'm sure we've all experienced this. If we're cold, we get the goosebumps. If we're scared, we get the goosebumps or something like that. So that actually is a muscle. So if you take a look here, surrounding the hair follicle is a muscle. So what does the muscle do? It squeezes and it actually causes the hair to stand up straight. So if you've ever taken a look at your arm, the hair follicles actually cause the hair to stand up straight when you are scared or when you're cold. Okay. So they contract and that hair causes it to stand up straight. Very interesting. So within our skin, we have melanin, and melanin is what gives us the color of our hair and our skin. So interestingly enough, in the summer when we all sit out in the sun and get a tan, that melanin actually is in little capsules throughout the cell, and the sun actually causes those capsules to break open. So when the capsules break open, it actually takes that coloring and like puts it more around the cell, which causes it to get darker in color, because the more melanin that breaks open, the darker your skin gets. So I know we all love the way that we look in the summer. We look healthy and sun-kissed and all this other stuff, but unfortunately it doesn't last. Well, why doesn't it last? Well, because we lose our skin once a month. We pretty much shed our entire skin. We don't do it like snakes in one big swoop. When every time we go in the shower, some cells come off, and that's totally normal. They're dead. That's why it's not painful for them to come off. But it's just part of the human body, that our body is constantly making new skin. You probably have noticed too, like if you have a scar. So if you ever get a deep cut where it leaves a scar, you will notice that over time, not like a year or two, but over many, many years, scars usually fade, because the initial cut or whatever happened, whether it was surgery or whether you really cut yourself bad, actually cut through all the layers of skin, which is fine. But if it was a big scar, it took a lot for the cells to actually repair themselves, and then slowly over time, that scar should not be as deep as it was once before. Pretty interesting. In our dermis, we also have our oil and our sweat glands. So our oil glands are going to open up into our hair follicles, and that's going to prevent our hair and our skin from drying out. That's why, when you take a shower, you're basically washing off the oils of your body. If you're somebody that doesn't wash their hair every day because that's something that you don't do, like maybe your type of hair doesn't require it, your body, interestingly enough, doesn't release so much oil. Whereas if you are somebody who does wash your hair every day, your body notices that it's drying out. So what does it do? It sends more oil and sends more oil. So it actually causes you to produce more oil and to release more oil the more you shower. So pretty interesting. I'm not don't say, oh my God, I should never shower. I'm not saying that at all. But it is interesting that there is a correlation there. Okay. Sweat glands, huge in homeostasis. Remember, homeostasis is our body's way of maintaining balance. Sweating is a way our body balances our temperature. What happens when we overheat or get hot? We sweat. We sweat to cool off our body. So what happens is the sweat pools up on our skin, and actually the heat causes it to um, release from the body. So when we release heat from the body and the sweat actually evaporates, it takes the heat from our body and puts it into the atmosphere, which actually cools us off. So that's how that works. So super important. Your sweat glands are very, very, very important. Okay. So here's a nice picture of the skin and a couple of different things that we talked about. So here up at top, we have the oil gland, once again, connected to the hair follicle, which is here. And then we have the pili muscle here, which is going to contract and cause that hair to stare up when we're either scared or cold. I didn't speak about, scared. That's actually like a mother nature thing. So if we were out in nature, it's called the flight or fight response. So we have our senses and they pick up things. So if we hear something that scares us, we go and we turn and we look, and believe it or not, our hair follicles do stand up on edge, and we have to decide then whether we're going to fight what's coming towards us, or if we're going to flight, we're going to run away from what's coming towards us. So that's not a human thing. That's just an animalistic tendency. It's called the flight or fight response. Okay. Here we've got the sweat gland, very important, like I said, for homeostasis. We have the epidermis, which is the top layer. We have the middle layer here, which is the dermis, which is where all of this stuff is found. And then the fat layer, also very important because, believe it or not, fat can be converted into energy. We'll talk about that more next year, but fat can be turned into energy, which obviously our skin is going to need to do what it needs to do. And then here we have our nerve and our blood cell. This can be either the nerve cell or the blood cell. The picture isn't very descriptive, so I would be okay with you saying either or for that one. So sense receptors, very, very, very important. We have, we feel hot and cold, we feel pain, we feel pressure, we feel touch. All of that is part of our senses, right? Our five senses. So super important. Out of all these, obviously hot and cold, very important. If you were to touch a hot stove, you're going to pull back right away. Not only do you feel the heat, but you feel the pain from the heat as well. Pressure, if somebody is hugging you and they're hugging you really, really tight, you feel that pressure. If they squeeze you to death. I mean, I don't know how possible it is, but they can really hurt you if they were to squeeze you, and you not be able to say, oh, you're hurting me, stop, right? And then touch as well. Now, the touch is very interesting. I actually included a video I wanted you to watch of a girl who feels no pain. And you're probably thinking to yourself, oh my God, that's so awesome. But I want you right now to just start rubbing your eye. Just start rubbing your eye, really. Oh, yeah. Okay. And then start rubbing a little harder. And you're like, ow, ow, ow. So what do? You stop rubbing it, or you don't put in a lot of pressure. If we didn't have those pain and touch receptors, we would poke our eye out. So this mother goes through the difficulties that this little girl has. Um, it's an older video, but it still is pertinent to what we're talking about with the fact that these receptors are so, so, so important. It's one of the reasons why our skin is so important. So you have more pain than any other kind of receptor. Good thing for that because we don't want to feel pain. You don't want to be walking around with a broken ankle or something. We want to feel that pain so that we say to our body, okay, stop doing that. Let's see what's wrong and let's see if we can fix it. And the parts of the body that you're actually touching with, your your fingers, the palms of your hands, all of those have more touch receptors than any other kind of receptors. Okay, so I think that's good. I will be on Zoom with you guys at least one time this week. So if you have any questions related to the PowerPoint, I have no problem answering them. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. Okay, I will talk to you all soon.